My grandmother, Khushwant Singh. Khushwant Singh, 1915 to 2014, is one of the most well-known Indian writers of all times. Besides being a renowned writer, he was also a journalist and a lawyer, and alumnus of St. Stephen's College in Delhi and King's College London. Khushwant Singh started his career as a lawyer for several years before joining the Indian Ministry of External Affairs in 1947. His experience in the 1947 partition of India inspired him to write Train to Pakistan in 1956, which was made into a film in 1998, which later became his most well-known novel. In 2007, he was awarded the Padma Vibhushan, the second highest civilian award in India. Few among his well-known books are Train to Pakistan, 1956, Delhi, a novel, 1990, The Company of Women, 1999, Truth, Love and a Little Malice, 2002, and The Good, the Bad and the Ridiculous, 2013. About the story. The story recounts the author's memory of his grandmother. He spent many memorable years with her when they lived together, away from his parents. He recounts many poignant memories of her as he was growing up. They adored each other, and she accompanied him when he went to school. The relationship changes as he grows up. He beautifully captures his grandmother's quiet, resilient life and her independence. My grandmother. My grandmother and I were good friends. My parents left me with her when they went to live in the city, and we were constantly together. She used to wake me up in the morning and get me ready for school. She said her morning prayer while she bathed and dressed me. She thought that I would listen and get to know it by heart. I listened because I loved her voice, but never bothered to learn it. Then she would fetch my wooden slate, which she had already washed and plastered with yellow chalk, a tiny earthen ink pot, and a red pen, tie them all in a bundle, and hand it to me. After a breakfast of a thick, stale chapati with a little butter and sugar spread on it, we went to school. She carried several stale chapatis with her for the village dogs. My grandmother always went to school with me because the school was attached to the temple. The priest taught us the alphabet and the morning prayer, while the children sat in rows on either side of the veranda singing the alphabet or the prayer in a chorus. My mother sat inside reading the scriptures. When we had both finished, we would walk back together. This time, the village dogs would meet us at the temple door. They followed us to our home, growling and fighting with each other for the chapatis we threw to them. When my parents were comfortably settled in the city, they sent for us. That was the turning point in our friendship. Although we shared the same room, my grandmother no longer came to school with me. I used to go to an English school in a motor bus. There were no dogs in streets, so she took to feeding sparrows in the courtyard of our city house. As the years rolled by, we saw less of each other. For some time she continued to wake me up and get me ready for school. When I came back, she would ask me what the teacher had taught me. I would tell her English words and little things of Western science and learning. When I went up to university, I was given a room of my own. The common link of friendship was snapped. My grandmother accepted her seclusion with resignation. She rarely left her spinning wheel to talk to anyone. From sunrise to sunset, she sat by her wheel, spinning and reciting prayers. Only in the afternoons did she relax for a while to feed the sparrows. When I decided to go abroad for further studies, I was sure my grandmother would be upset. I would be away for 5 years, and at her age, one could never tell. But my grandmother could. She was not even sentimental. She came to leave me at the railway station, but did not talk or show any emotion. After 5 years, I came back home and was met by her at the station. She did not look a day older. In the evening, a change came over her. She did not pray. She collected the women of the neighborhood, got an old drum, and started to sing. For several hours she thumped the drum and sang of the homecoming of warriors. We had to persuade her to stop to avoid overstraining. That was the first time since I had known her that she did not pray. The next morning she was taken ill. It was a mild fever, and the doctor told us that it would go. But my grandmother thought differently. She told us that her end was near. She said that since she had omitted to pray a few hours before the close of the last chapter of her life, she was not going to waste any more time talking to us. We protested, but she ignored our protests. She lay peacefully in bed, praying and telling her beads. Even before we could suspect, her lips stopped moving and the rosary fell from her lifeless fingers. She was dead. We lifted her off the bed and, as is customary, laid her on the ground and covered her with a red shroud. After a few hours of mourning, we left her alone to make arrangements for her funeral. In the evening, we went to her room with a crude stretcher to take her to be cremated. The sun was setting and had lit her room and veranda with a blaze of golden light. We stopped halfway in the courtyard. All over the veranda and in her room, right up to where she lay dead and stiff, wrapped in the red shroud, thousands of sparrows sat scattered on the floor. There was no chirping. We felt sorry for the birds. My mother fetched some bread for them. She broke it into little crumbs, the way my grandmother used to, and threw them to them. The sparrows took no notice of the bread. When we carried my grandmother's corpse off, they flew away quietly. Next morning, the sweeper swept the bread crumbs into the dustbin.